Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for our final panel of the Momentum series. My name is Tori and I work at GPCOG, and it's been a huge pleasure to bring this series to life for the past few months. And we are ending the series in style with our friends at the Telling Room, who are going to bring you an amazing panel on storytelling as a tool for racial equity. So before I hand it over, I just wanted to take a minute to thank all of you who have been tuning in for our series every single month. We really wanted to keep the conversation going on inclusion and on allyship and amplification of marginalized voices in Maine. So I really appreciate all of you who took the time to join us for that journey. And a special thanks to GPCOG and to the Chamber, to Portland Public Library, to Maine Historical Society, and to United Way for your partnership on this series. And we look forward to continuing our efforts individually of intentional and consistent anti-racism as the summer months approach. So I just wanted to, again, thank everybody so much for being part of the series, for tuning in with us every single month, and for continuing the conversation with us. So thank you. And I think now I'll go ahead and hand it over to Thecla, who is up on screen from the Telling Room. And I will allow her to take it from here on introducing the panelists, and we can get started. So Thecla, take it away.
Thank you, Joey. Hi, everyone. My name is Edna Thecla Akimana. I go by Thecla. I'm an ambassador at the Telling Room. I am currently a student at UMass Boston. I'm double majoring in exercise and health science as well as pre-medical program. I am also an activist on top of being an ambassador at the Telling Room and activist as well. I am a feminist as well, sorry. Today, we're glad to be here to be able to have a conversation on Maine racial and social equity that is surrounding us and what we are actually living in our society. Without taking so long, I have some awesome panelists that I'm gonna be talking about. 4 panelists that we have from the Telling Room that are with me. Hopefully that this panel, this conversation will bring to light answers to the questions that everyone might have. And yeah, let's get started. The first person that I'm gonna be presenting, his name is Philip Tran. Please correct me if I misspell your name. He's currently a college junior at Clark University. He's studying in the field of sociology. That's what he's getting his bachelor degree in. He loves arts and being able to have opportunity to get involved, express what inspires him, as well as what other people are inspire. His interest right now have to do with editorial photography and filmmaking, as well as food in general. And the second panelist that I have is Traci Francis. She's a senior at the South Portland High School. She loves to stay active by running track and field and playing soccer. In her spare time, Traci volunteers at the Ronald McDonald House and listens to all genre of music except for country. That's really specified. She participated in the Young Writer and Leaders program at the Telling Room, where she published a personal essay about her struggles with mental health, and in hopes to end the stigma and inspire others to start talking about the topic. Traci is extremely passionate about social justice and would like to incorporate that in her studies by majoring in science, technology, and society with a pre-med track at Vassar College, continuing her track and field career. And this third panelist, please correct me if I misspell your name, is Ting Chen. Is a first-generation Chinese American living in Portland, Maine. She loves working on new projects and is always seeking new opportunities to pursue her different interests. She can often be found reading, writing, drawing, and just laughing with her family and friends. You can find some of her writing in the 2019-2020 edition of the Telling Room's Young Writers and Leaders anthology, The Voice of a Lion, as well as the Telling Rooms 2020 edition anthology, See Beyond. The last but not least panelist that we have is Fiona. She's a community activist and senior at the South Portland High School. She's passionate about advocacy, the law, and politics, using writings is as one of many mediums to highlight prominent issues. She has been involved in a plethora of organizations such as Seeds of Peace, ACLU, and has held multiple leadership positions in her community. And with no further ado, I am going to give the stage to these great panelists to start off. And they're going to start off with their reading. They're just going to give us a brief reading. I will introduce first Philip, and then Philip will be able to introduce the next panelist. Philip, the floor is yours.
I'm not sure if he's here. So I can go next until maybe he shows up.
True. I didn't actually realize that he was not here. Go ahead, Traci.
Okay. I'm Traci. I'm a senior at South Portland. And the piece I'm going to be sharing today is a poem that I wrote in poetry class this past semester. And I think it kind of relates to what we're going to be talking about today, because you can see how I express how I feel in the poem, and oftentimes it's so important to be able to have a voice in your writing because we aren't being listened to. So it's called a pantoum poem. So the lines will repeat themselves a little bit differently throughout. So we are often reminded of the feeling of what it means to be Black in America, but are at loss for words when it comes to describing how the system is working exactly like it's supposed to. Being Black in America is being judged for telling the country how the system that is not mine is not broken, yet it's still built by the hands of my ancestors. We are judged when our words are far too heavy for America to carry, though they force trauma into the hands of my ancestors, but God forbid we kneel to the flag. The truth is too heavy for Americans to carry. When we try to describe the painfully obvious oppression, their overt reaction to kneeling to the flag is a great reminder of what it means to be Black in America. So that was my poem, and I think I'm going to hand it off to Ting now.
Hello. My poem doesn't quite have a name, but the context behind it is that I was reliving a racist moment that happened to me in the 8th grade, and I was fuming, and I just had to write my thoughts down. So, rolling waves grow with each passing tide. Living by the waters of Portland, Maine, these tides were a common, subtle thing. Sure, you notice the waves as they appear endlessly on every coastline, shoreline. They're less special with each and every passing tide. The horizon of the distant sea is an unwavering calm. That's what it shows itself off to be. Our little waves never make an impact out there in the great blue sea. It is in the water's nature to be never-ending in its waves. They're harsh, unyielding. You hear tales of the waves and tides out there each and every day. The roughness, dangerous casualties, and rage of the ocean waves, common in the past, if not even more today. It's hard to imagine the ruthless tides rolling their way into our waves, past the coastline, shorelines that lull us into the false calm of every day. It makes it easy and simple to ignore and forget. Forget the history that's both blocked and paved the miles worth of pathways that lay all over these lands. This history that's made with each passing day. It's easy to forget the tides that have come rolling and crashing into our own lives. When they're so accepted and settled, it feels wrong to say that it is wrong. When this residing anger from all those waves that have washed over my life have yet to wash away, no matter the strength I've gained. When that girl pulled back her eyes to my face, when those two boys stood in front of me, butchering what they thought was my language as they tried to cuss and curse at me with it. They got to pick and choose what they got to say in my language when we get scared to do the same, in fear of being told to get away. They laughed at me. Sure, they got their minute of fun. using to their will a language that's lasted humanity history over. I will never forgive them, I will never forget. I remember all of their names. My anger and rage will light fires down my back. Are they toxic rains or toxins pains as the throw of acid scorches down in rolling waves? They get to pick what parts of us they like, toss, cover up, wash away what they don't. Oh, but we're okay if only to be placed on shiny clouded pedestals they tell us to shine so proud, to be used to mock others for not being able to do the same, as if we are not all gated and caged like dogs the same, blocked by the ceilings they made. When we are ousted, recategorized away, to account for their own follies and needs, resort to the wicked, rewrite the data down, cover up motives and names, or claim it was just a bad day. They get to pick and choose what they like about us at all. Is it because they like to fetishize us like cute little dolls, turn us against each other and drown us out? Plague of plagues, who's the worst killer? Disease burns in us and reveals our true colors. Each bad day comes and goes, then the next. Who'll be next to complete their little sets? Tear down the illusions beyond our horizons. Push back the shore, reverse the waves. When there is plague, who knows who will get to stay? They try to drown out our sound. Before it all, to them we barely mattered. Because we're blocks in the digital walls, do their ripples change our given hands at all? Just because it is acknowledged doesn't mean that knowledge alone parts our watery paths. Put your words to use, break from the curve that's just part of the cycle. Words don't just give us power, we must use them to prove our voices matter. Thank you. The next speaker is Fiona.
Hi guys, that was really amazing, Ting. That was a really beautiful poem. My poem kind of goes with the same theme of like nature and relating it to some experience. But yeah, I wrote this piece over a long period of time. At first, it was just like this really small part that I wrote for class with like the assignment of writing about nature. And then I realized how there was such clear connections with the ways we mistreat nature in the society, and also how it connects / relates to the treatment of people of color, specifically Black people. And I wrote the last half of this right after the death of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. It's titled Crimson. Long blades of grass sway as the wind roams. The vibrant flowers begin to bloom as the sun shows its face again. The dark crimson bark of the tree protects the layers of tradition beneath. It stands tall, though weathered by many defeats. Birds chirp, unaware that the blades that dance only by manipulation of the wind will soon be cut short. And the dark crimson bark will be taken down by man and used for things of the meaningless sort. Just like the earth that used to be free of our feet, of our polluted ways and concrete streets, we are an endangered species. In danger we have remained, our thick manes and melanated skin are targets on our backs. We have been laughed at, spat on, hunted, and abused, while the culture of our ancestors has been imitated as a muse. We deserve no respect. We have been stepped on, held down, knee to the neck. A Negro falls in the concrete jungle, no one dares to stand witness. Do his pleas make a sound, or will they be met with indifference? Like the ground beneath us, we have remained resilient. It seems as though we are screaming in deaf ears and our tears will never be seen. 400 years of bondage from slavery to incarceration, we continue to bleed. And you continue to praise America, that was built by our calloused hands and on stolen Indian lands. Unlike our tears, your corruption will not go unseen much longer. Dear America, the eruption has already started. The institutions that hold our freedom are begging to fall. All those you have wronged now stand together. Our roots are strong and deep. We are tethered by your cruelties. Will you finally see? Will you finally listen to our pleas? Or will you turn a blind eye yet again? This time we have nothing to lose. Try and silence us. Try to sew our lips shut. We will still be heard. Still we will rise, and your lies of life and liberty will become truth. We will rebuild this country into what it was always meant to be, a real democracy. Mere fear cannot control us. Our anger and sadness can lay dormant no more, for the power we have is undeniable and change is inevitable. Thank you, guys.
Wow, you guys are so amazing. Everyone, as you can tell, these are the representation of what the telling room is all about. Traci, C, and Fiona just described actually through their writing what the telling room is really about. It's about the creativity, writing, and empowering youth. And as a nonprofit, the telling room has empowered all of us to be this good at expressing ourselves, our feelings, and what we are seeing in our world today. With the great readings that we just heard, I'm just going to ask the panelists to start getting ready for the questions. I hope that so far we are all like okay with the technology. We don't have any issue. I wish Philip was here. I was trying to see if he might have, been late or not, but hopefully he will be able to pop in at any time. And with that being said, we have questions, but we will also give some time to the audience to ask the panelists some questions. I'm just gonna go ahead and ask the first question to our panelists. And I'm gonna start with Traci, since Philip is not here. Why are writing and storytelling critical tools in the quest of racial equity? You can give an example, you can talk about your time at the telling room, whatever is relevant to help us have some clarity on that question.
Yeah, so I think it's definitely an important tool to be able to use because, like I said before, we're often not listened to, and having to repeat yourself over and over to either different people or the same person who doesn't understand can be very exhausting and tiring. So when you're able to get what you're feeling down on paper and just show that to other people, it makes a big difference in how you feel and how they maybe can see things differently. And I also think it makes it easier to like connect with other people. Like at the telling room, I was able to read many of my peers' work, which was a huge thing, and just like making me a better writer, but also getting to learn a little bit about their experience as well. And there was an experience that I had with my school where I had to kind of make statements about what happened in an incident. I think this definitely helped because I was able to get my emotion across in those statements. So yeah. And then Ting.
Yeah, I think that writing and storytelling are such essential critical tools for racial equity because, like I said, they are such a strong way to bring to light a lot of both collectively and personally experienced events that also play huge major roles in the fight for racial equity. Stories that at times make are maybe difficult to express regularly come out and communicate easier through the forms of storytelling and writing. At least for me, it does, which is what I experienced through the telling room. What I wrote in my original piece were thoughts that I had been bottling up for 2, maybe 3 years. And I just never had a proper way of expressing it. But given the opportunity through doing it through writing, it just made it so much easier to express them and come to a form of closure for myself as well. Fiona?
Yeah, so I agree with everything that Ting and Traci have said. I feel like it allows you to have individual growth. In my experience, it allowed me to understand how microaggressions and certain experiences I've had have related to my confidence and my insecurities, and kind of has helped me face that more and understand how to change some outlooks I have that have been unhealthy for me. But it also creates opportunity for you to connect with others who have same experience that relate to you. And then the last thing, which I think is super important, is there's often not people of color who are the ones sharing their stories. It's often white voices that are trying to portray Black people in popular media, but it's really important that students of color and youth of color get the chance to tell their stories and to write and to get their stories out there, because it gives the true feeling, the nuance that each story deserves. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually agree with all of you, because I feel like it's hard for our voices to be heard, and sometimes we have to try and push harder through those doors and through writing when we're prepared mentally and we have everything aligned together. We feel like we have that power to express our feelings, and that's actually a great response. Thank you everyone for responding to that question. We have Philip in the room. Hi, Philip.
Hello, I really apologize for showing up late.
Sorry.
Something's up. My internet wasn't working in my apartment and my phone was dead.
All right.
And, well, one thing led to another, and here I am late.
So we were really like on the first question, but I can give you about 3 minutes to actually do your reading if you have it prepared. And then I can also ask that question and maybe give you idea as well. All right, go ahead with your reading.
Yeah, sure thing. So let's see my reading. Okay. Let's see here. I have it right here. It's a piece I made recently called Growing Up. It's, to give context, it's about my experience literally growing up as like Asian American, like young child, and what I've learned from it. So let's start. Growing up, I was not aware of being looked at as differently because of where I came from. I thought we were defined by who we are, but not what we are. Growing up, I was not sure of the judgment I received for my last name. I thought the phrase "don't judge a book by its cover" applied to like names as well. Growing up, I was not able to understand why how I looked mattered in social groups and in life. I thought we could be friends with anyone of our own choosing. Growing up, I was always confused and angry because I just didn't know what I was supposed to do or who I was. I thought expectations put on me made life impossible. Growing up now, I realize I will keep experiencing the wrong in the world. However, I think things will change for once. That's my piece. Yeah.
That is so powerful, actually. It's really good. Thank you for sharing.
Of course, thank you so much. Thank you for listening.
And the question was, why are writing and storytelling critical tools in the quest of racial equity? You can give us like one example or talk about, maybe you just shared about your experiences of how you grew up thinking. Maybe you can just give another like example to that question. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so how is like racial equity important for storytelling?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. I would say it's varied among experiences between people to people, and it gives like an individual like a platform to like. I mean, it really depends. I would say with some people, one person might not benefit as much, but it's still worth like for them to be involved in. Gives them really an experience to share like their own perspective and voice. For me, it's like it's great. An example would be like they're trying to be specific here. An example, I'm not trying to be too broad. I mean, an example would be like a student gain confidence in like being able to share their voice, and like this it could translate to public speaking too. It's like being able to like learn about writing and like sharing like your own voice in regarding your own like racial identity. It can go a long way for sure. Cause like I used to be very shy, and like when I did telling room, it was really great, giving me confidence. You know, here I am talking casually. It's good.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. And I feel like I should add that up to this question, asking everyone, do you guys feel like scared when you're writing or when you're about to express your feelings? And because we're not, sometimes we're not sure how people are gonna, view us and the perspective that they have on what we're sharing or talking about, especially nowadays where like the tension is really all over the place. And I just want to know, like, when you're writing, is there like a part of you that is fearing for your life, or is there a part of you that is like that much confident that whatever's going to happen is going to happen? Traci.
Okay. When I'm writing, I don't feel very scared, I would say, because most of the times when I'm writing, I'm not thinking about sharing it with other people at that point in time. But at the same time, I've never been like that. I think social justice has been a place where I can be my like most aggressive self because it's just in my values and in my core. So I don't really get scared in a way that I don't want to tell people what I believe in and how I'm feeling. But I would say that sometimes I do feel a little bit apprehensive about like what the reaction could be.
Good point. Anyone want to jump in?
I can jump in on that one really quickly. But yeah, I feel like Traci said, I don't usually feel scared about how my writing is going to be perceived, or when I'm writing it, it's more like if I can fully demonstrate what I'm feeling and put it onto the page. So I feel more fearful that like I'm not going to get out what I want to get out. And yeah.
Yeah, like what Fiona said, the only times in which I feel any kind of fear when I'm writing is fear that I'm not going to write this fast enough, get it out of my head, get it out of my thoughts. When it comes to expressing and talking about my writing through speaking, talking about it to other people, I do feel a bit of anxiety. I feel very anxious, but I always do feel much better talking about it to people because then they know how I've been feeling, they know what I've experienced, and they understand it.
Awesome. Philip, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I was gonna add on saying like I feel mostly scared that I'm not being honest with myself. Like if I'm writing down what I'm like actually want to say, whatever the subtopic is, like from my own experience, like is this something I feel strongly about? And like if so, am I being honest about how I'm choosing my words here?
Yeah, I think we all agree on that part where we're ready, we can write, and then there is that critical side that we're not sure how we're gonna face it, but still we ended up facing it because we were prepared in the beginning. That's really good. My other question for you is growing up in Maine, or whenever you started to live in Maine and you grew up here in this community, what has been your experience in regards to racial equity, whether in school, in the community, in the local groups or at work? And if you do have some experiences outside of Maine, I know Phillips lives in Massachusetts, right? The racial equity lens, through the racial equity lens, share with us your experiences and how you have been feeling since then to now, maybe. I'm gonna start with Philip, and then Traci, and then C, and then Fiona.
Okay, so growing up in Maine, I was born in like 1999, and my family had just immigrated from Vietnam in the early 90s. So it was like difficult to adjust from like one culture to like adapting to like in Maine. And so I guess growing up through my eyes, it's like it's like I feel like I was on my own because like I'm a first generation. And like finding community, I feel like back then it wasn't talked about as much because like my family was not educated on like finding community for like Vietnamese Americans. And I'm trying to like, it's hard to say. I mean, I feel like I didn't really notice. I feel like I was on my own as a young child until I was towards like middle school, high school, when I found like a good support group for like, people, like, Asian American students. And then it went up from there. And then one thing led to another. And I found like a good support group for like people around my racial identity. And let's see, like outside of Maine, I mean, I graduated in 2018 during high school, and I went to Clark University, and I go in my senior year next year. But it's in Worcester, Massachusetts, and here it's interesting because like when I think of the main demographic is primarily white people, yes, but here Worcester, it's very diverse, and in terms of like seeing people that are Asian American like me, it's very different because I see a lot more international students that are coming from like the eastern side of the world rather than like Asian American students from America. So it's interesting to see how that is for me. Because like it was being here, the school I'm at is mostly white students, and like they kind of.
I agree with you. I agree with you because I live in Massachusetts too, and I see a lot of differences. Like even in the society, when you're walking in the community, there's just a vibe that you can find that you see in Massachusetts. I definitely agree with you. Did you have more to add on, or should I pass it on Traci?
You should pass it on, but yeah, mostly I guess what you're saying, the vibe is very different. Based on the demographic, the energy, and where they come from. Because like, yeah.
And I think we have more cultures in Massachusetts too, and at some point you're not sure if these people are from here, but they blend in.
Oh, one more thing. The reason why the energy is different, I know, is because like Massachusetts, in terms of academic setting, it's much more school, so that means more people from different areas come in, and then that's just naturally different.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
That's a really good point. Traci.
Yeah, so I would say growing up in Maine was definitely interesting. I think when I was younger, I didn't really notice anything like Philip said. But looking back now, I think a lot of things have happened that I didn't really realize. I'm like, oh, that was probably racist. And so that has been a little bit weird. And also, the only family that I have up here is my mom's side, which is all white family. And my other family lives in New York and Jamaica, so we aren't always able to see them. And there was a very big difference in being around culture. Like when we did go travel to see them and then coming back here, it's just kind of like a sort of like culture shock. But I missed them a lot and like being able to be down there. But another thing is definitely like not trying to dismiss anything that's happened to me, but because Maine is such a white state, that because I'm light skinned, everyone has always just seen me as Black, like I'm just not white. And I think that's something that I kind of had to adjust to in the past couple of years as I've learned about colorism, is that I still do have a lot of privilege because I do have lighter skin. And going into like college next year in the real world, I think that's just something that I need to keep in mind. And like having my voice and being able to speak out and not being afraid, I think that really helps me because people like I'm lighter. So yeah.
Yeah, that is actually a good point too. Like being a mixed person, I think there's so much pressure. There's so much pressure from the society, so much pressure from peers at school. And when you're giving your opinion in such a time where Black people are being offended and white people are threatening Black people, it's like you find yourself in that middle space and you're not sure what to do. And even if you do, you're not being accepted. Your ideas are not being accepted as they should. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. C, do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I'd say for me growing up in Maine, it was kind of calm. I'd account that to growing up mostly in Portland and its surrounding regions, which is where there's quite a bit of diversity in comparison to the rest of the general Maine. Though there were some moments of xenophobia, racism, now that I think back on it when I'm older, growing up, I also never really had the thought that people could be racist against me as Chinese American. Like besides these looks, questions, those experiences I would get as a kid, I never really took hyper notice of those situations, especially because there was no really talk about racism against Chinese or Asian Americans in general in any place I had growing up. So now that I've had to learn through that on my own, because even though we did talk about racism in general, there was no specific group that it was talked towards besides general American racism. Learning about xenophobia and racism in its entirety on my own, now that I'm older, I can recognize that though growing up in Portland, it was mostly okay. There's still quite a handful of these xenophobic and racist experiences throughout my entire life that I only now really notice and can realize them for what they're for.
Yeah, that is really a good point. Fiona, would you like to jump on and say something?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you guys have said. Definitely, like when you're younger, you don't have the words or the knowledge to be like that was a microaggression. That was definitely like racist. That person should not have said that. But you generally get a feeling of like shame and guilt from doing something and getting reactions from people, or people being racist to you. And as you get older, you recognize that. But definitely, I think Maine can be very, very isolating to the outside world and understanding racial equity outside. So like, I have family in Baltimore, and so they live outside of Baltimore, but sometimes we'll go into the city. And you can see the clear lack of racial inequity. Like you can basically see where these parts of the city are redlined, where it goes from a wealthy white community to a poor Black and brown community, and just like rows of houses that are condemned or people being evicted, and then a liquor store on the corner, no real grocery store. So just like stuff like that is definitely a wake-up call, and just really understanding how racism is different everywhere you go. But the baseline is there needs to be change.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with all of you because I was not born in Maine, but when I immigrated in Maine and seeing how I never knew about racism. I like where I'm from in Burundi, like we don't talk about racism because we think that everybody is nice, like everybody's welcoming. But then the culture shock when you arrive here, seeing people looking at you differently, people not saying hi to each other, and you wonder like, what am I doing here? Like, what is this world? And I think it really opened my eyes as well to see that actually it's real. Like we do see it in televisions and on social media, but when we're there in another continent, we do not feel the pressure, we do not feel it. But when we're actually living in it, then that's when you realize like, I'm not an immigrant, I'm actually being seen as an actual African American, because at the end of the day, beside that I'm an asylum seeker or beside that I'm a green card holder, my skin is Black. And I think I agree with all of you. Every background is touched by the culture shock, and it's a really a big deal. That's true. And my fourth question to I think third question actually to everyone is, in the face of discrimination, since we're talking about the culture shock and racism and discrimination, as young leaders, what is the most difficult thing for you that you see or have seen or experienced, and that you see that it's still an issue today, or that was an issue then but it's still affecting you today? Philip, do you want to start with that?
Yes, please. Thank you. Today I feel like for young people today, it's hard to like be taken seriously as a young leader, especially like you're talking about like racial identities and like equity and like all that, everything around that. Because I feel like people could pass it off and put us as jokes like, oh, you're over exaggerating, and like all the small things like if I am, it's worth listening, but people don't really listen. That's the problem. It's like, I think that is the most difficult thing, to like not feel listened to and just be pushed aside, especially by like other people around our age group, or like even older people. It's worst thing ever.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Traci, do you have something to add on?
Yeah, so like I had talked about earlier with like this incident that I had with my school, the school's response to what I had brought forward to them it was not responsive, and I was not happy with it. And so the best course of action, or just to feel heard, was to go to the press. And after just seeing how like a lot of people responded to that, like on social media and stuff, in like negative, positive ways, but also negative ways, it was kind of just like, people really don't understand what you go through no matter what. You can try to explain however much you want, but they really just won't understand, and that can get really frustrating. And another thing is, I think in my community, probably like the same type of thing for Fiona, is that our community sees us as these strong leaders who fight against social justice. But then it all falls on us, and they don't go to anyone else. And I don't speak for the entire Black community. Again, like, I'm light skinned. I don't have the same experience as someone who is dark skinned. I can't speak for everyone. And that can be really frustrating. And that's something that I found was really hard, especially this year when we were just addressed by many different like groups of people in the school and teachers with like questions, and I don't have all the answers, and it shouldn't be up to me to like be answering those questions. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, and especially in school, because I remember when I arrived in 2013, I was 19 at that time. And I remember facing discrimination in school, but because I was unable to express my feelings and the language barrier that I had, I was scared to try harder. But I remember that a year after that, I was applying for college, and this advisor looked at me in the eyes and told me that I should not apply to bigger college. At that time, I didn't see it as an insult because I didn't know. But then when I look at it today, I'm like, that was an insult. She was limiting me to pursue my dream. And that's where actually we're seeing, like, when we're trying to knock on those doors and break those bridges, young leaders are seeing, I wouldn't say like crazy people, but they're seen as if their reaction is all about anger. It's all about violence. But in reality, they're just trying to find space and tables so that they can be able to build up their future and also be able to plant their seed for the next generation, because really the elders have failed us in so many ways. And to this day, we can tell how bad history has made us believe in lies, and we're struggling because what history is hiding, what we're not being taught in school, what we're not being taught in the community. And being in Maine, where the Black population is really low, makes it even harder. So I definitely agree with you on this district and educational part. See, do you want to add anything on that?
Yeah, I think personally the most difficult thing I've seen is this kind of intergroup fighting. There are many different minority groups fighting for their equality as we speak. There's a lot of different movements happening. But I've seen that it is way more common than it is expected, that there's this fighting and racism amongst these groups to each other. Of course, the majority support each other, which is great, but it's still so troubling to see just how much of it still exists when we're all essentially fighting for the same thing. It's even worse when you take into account that this interfighting doesn't do anything to help the actual fight. It just distracts us from fighting for all of our equalities. Yeah.
Fiona?
I don't really know what the most difficult thing has been. Maybe just kind of like just vacillating between hope and then like just like realizing like if our school or administration has these plans or has certain things that they're proposing to do, and then when they actually happen, it's not as great as it sounded when they first proposed it, and it's not actually creating the change that we want. I think like the most apparent thing that's like in my brain right now is we just had an award ceremony this past week, and there was maybe 6 students of color out of, I don't know, however many students that were there, maybe 50 or 60 students. And it just kind of demonstrates like, it's just like the accumulation of all the racism in our school. Like we should be, I think students of color make up over 25% of South Portland's high schools makeup right now. But they were definitely not like, they were definitely not shown in the award ceremony. And it, like I said, it's like accumulation of like all the racism that's happening in the school system. Like, why aren't students of color given these awards? Is it because they're not given chances to be in these classes? Are they not given chances to exceed? Are they like being pushed behind somehow so that they can't succeed? It's yeah, it's just really difficult to watch those moments. And yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you because I remember, and it's not just today, honestly, it's really has been like that because I remember receiving an award and I'm the only Black person. And I'm wondering like, what has the other Somali kid who has been writing for longer than I have, why didn't they choose that kid? And I really feel bad because at that time you really want to bring the entire tribe with you. You want to bring everybody and carry them with that award, but we know that we're really better than that, and we have more potential than the white activists and young leaders, unfortunately, and their voices are being heard more than us, that it covers the issues surrounding us. And I think that's a really good point of how to this day in the Maine educational district, the Black kids are still being kind of put behind on those categories. And
Yeah, I feel like you perfectly just summed up what I was trying to say. Oh, sorry.
yeah,
I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, you're good. You're good. Yeah, my other question actually is for Traci and Fiona. You have done some work within your school in South Portland High School since we're on this topic over the last couple of years. Can you talk a little bit more about what that has been like for you guys? Has it been hectic? Are you guys winning in what you're doing, or do you feel like there's still some walls that are hard to break and the pieces are not coming together?
I think there is a ton of walls that still need to be broken. I think I did a lot of work this year that I'm proud of myself for, because I couldn't have done any better no matter what their response was, which hasn't been amazing. It hasn't been that great, but I think it's sort of like a half step forward, a step forward. But it's really frustrating to see how much work you put in to a school or a community and not see that much back out and change. I definitely think that's kind of been a wake-up call for next year. Like when I go to school, I definitely want to continue social justice work, but I think that for me, that's going to be in the form of education and learning about these systems that have been built over these years so I can try and change them, but not really going and attacking like the system itself and like this academia because it's so exhausting. And I felt very like burnt out this year because I don't really know what I was expecting going into it, but I think the school, specifically our school, and I know it's not only our school, but they still have a lot of work to do.
I agree with you. I think it's the entire Portland educational system, and it's actually even worse in college. It's not even like, as a college student, I've transferred so many times. For me to end up going in Massachusetts was because of this discrimination that I was facing in both colleges that I attended here. I attended to 3 colleges. And at that point, I was like, I'm wasting my time, I'm wasting my money, so I gotta find a better place. But I also feel like for those kids who are unable to move, what are they going through? How are they surviving? And it's really heartbreaking. Yeah, Fiona, do you want to go ahead and answer that?
Yeah, I feel like that was actually like a great statement to segue into just how I'm feeling. But yeah, I feel like me and Traci and another group of girls, some underclassmen, have been doing this work for at least like 2 years now, working with equity and racial equity. And I feel like we made some steps this year. Like, we were able to start the BSU, which we first weren't able to start, which we'd been trying, like I'd been trying along with another girl to start it for like a year at South Portland. And I'm glad that we have that, because hopefully it will be a foundation for other students to grow. But for me, the reason why like I'm doing this work is because I was given the chance to be like a part of the telling room. Like, my friends that I made on my freshman year, like, showed me the telling room, showed me all these opportunities in Portland that like helped me grow and helped me like figure out what I want to do. And so I wanted to do that for other people, and open up those opportunities. And I feel like we've done some work, but I feel like there definitely needs to be more. Like, we wanted to start a college program for all first-gen students, like first-gen college students. We wanted to start up a college program. We wanted to do like a couple panels. Like, we have done some stuff, but there definitely needs to be more work. And the BSU needs to have like a stronger foundation so that other students can have a place to go, where they can feel like they can grow, where they can be comfortable with themselves. But I feel like the school, our administration is kind of trying. They're making steps, like they're doing some equity work, but I hope it turns out well, because
Yeah, because there's always that but at the end, because you're trying to build, but then there is somewhere really blocked. And I really hope the audience is listening, and we'll be able to have some doors for you guys to be able to open up all those windows that you guys want to open to be able to help others. My other question is for C. Last year, you wrote a piece with the Telling Room that won the Telling Room's top overall prize for the year. Congratulations on that, by the way. And in it, you talked about the settler racism. Has your perspective changed in any way over the last year? Has it like grown? Give us some details. Just want to know how you've been feeling since then.
Yeah, also thank you. It has definitely evolved from when I wrote that piece. When I wrote that piece, I was more writing about incidents that I was even able to notice when I was very, very young, like 5 to 8 years old. In my more recent piece, I talk about more xenophobic, racist events that I've been able to notice as I've gotten older. I talk more about racism against Asians and xenophobia because I see that it's not very talked about, not very acknowledged especially in Portland, in our surroundings right now. I'd still have to call it subtle racism because, like, for instance, that incident with those 2 boys in my piece making fun of me and my language, it was a very quiet class when it was happening, but no one else would acknowledge that it was happening. No one would say anything about it. It's because making fun of language, making fun of someone's culture like these things are really common and they go unnoticed because it's subtle, because it's been accepted and standardized as something that it just happens, even though it shouldn't. In another instance, I remember in the 8th grade, I couldn't fit this in my piece, it was too much, but there was a student who was an avid consumer of Asian culture, trends, and media, and they were talking to other students behind my back, and they said, I remember so clearly, they said that I was too fat to be an Asian, and no one else would say anything about it. She was saying it to a lot of people, but no one would tell me about it, no one would acknowledge it besides my best friend at the time. And not only was I body shamed, I was stereotyped into her ideal of what an Asian is because of these trends and through this media, very strict media, that is. Especially in these recent years, especially this last year of COVID, Asian hate crimes have been spiking along with Asian culture being spread and being used as trends. It fits into this fetishization and also contributes to the standardization and its ultimate exception in media and in society.
Wow, that was a really good output there. And I think I can definitely relate to what really happened to you, because I remember in college, I think I was at USM. No, I was at Deering first when I started my junior year. I was in history class and they were teaching about Africa map. And this kid had the audacity to ask me if we have bathrooms in Africa. And I was really skeptical. I didn't want to jump in and respond to that. But then it made me realize how much uneducated people are. Kids are being told Africa in a different way, that even if I would come here and it's not like we are poor, it's that we have wars that are happening back to back, but the country itself, if we had those resources that they have here, it would be a better place. So I think the culture and being dismissed in school really has been affecting so many people. And I just want to ask you guys, what is your mental state when that happens to you? Because I know it affected me mentally at that time, and technically you're being bullied, and you're feeling isolated at that moment because it's all coming to you unexpectedly. So I just want to ask, I know it's kind of personal, but I really want to have some answers from you guys, how you handle that mentally when that happens to you.
I can go first. So when something like that happens to me, like in the moment, I kind of just brush it off as a joke right there. And then when I finally get a chance to sit down by myself, it kind of hits and I think about what just happened. And then I mean, I'm 21 years old and I still sometimes tell myself, oh, I should have done something back then, but then like it's in that moment, I don't know what to do or say because it comes off just like that when you don't expect it. And you're like thinking, what was that intent? Was that intentional to say that? I don't know what's going on, So I just push it aside. But then it really gets to me. It's like, did that just happen?
I think like what Philip just said, in the moment, it usually takes me time to process things, like especially if they're just like coming right at my face like that. So it definitely can be frustrating when I don't know what to say in that moment, even though I know I have the words somewhere in there to like defend myself. And I think especially like when I was younger, I think when I was being bullied for being like whatever, my defense mechanism was like kind of turning towards like my white side. Like I would straighten my hair. I didn't start growing my curly hair out until like the end of my freshman year. I didn't really surround myself with a lot of people of color, even though there wasn't a ton around me, but I don't know, I wasn't feeling myself and I wasn't advocating as much as I could have been, because I knew that I kind of wanted to like keep my friends because they would see me in a different way, which is like frustrating to look back on and be like, you didn't need them, like look at where you are now. But it definitely got me through, I guess.
Yeah, that's a really good point. See, do you want to jump in for a few seconds?
Yeah, like in all those instances, kind of like the others. When it happens, I just kind of I'm in such disbelief that those words or what the person did just like came out of that person that I kind of dissociate. I don't think it happened, and then when I realize later, like maybe at 1 a.m., I'm laying in my bed, I can't sleep because I'm just contemplating what that person did, what they said, and I realize that I could have defended myself. I could have done so many things in that moment, but I was too in shock, too in disbelief to say anything. And it's that thing where you just think back about it and you create so many arguments that you could have done in your head, and they just haunt me because I didn't do them.
Yeah, definitely true. Fiona?
Yeah, I completely agree with everyone. I hate those moments so much. But I think just like another reaction that I've had is like, when you get so angry, but you don't want to seem angry to other people. You don't want to be the girl that like kind of went crazy on someone, so it manifests itself in like wanting to cry and like just not being able to get out what I want to get out. Yeah, so
Yeah, and I think also it turns to that I don't want people to think that I'm weak, like I
yeah.
want to show them that I'm weak. Like I can handle whatever comment, and you find yourself smiling, but deep down it's killing you.
Yeah.
I agree with all of you. I'm not sure if the audience might have some questions, but we are opening up for the audience to ask questions. So far, I have 2 in the chat. I have a question from Tori. What poets, activists, leaders do you all look up to and are inspired by? Philip.
Let's see. Now he's not really a traditional like activist that you would think that comes to his mind, but Bruce Lee, that comes to my mind. It's kind of big because like he does subtle things that he did in his lifetime that like, wow, this is a good man, Like I looking back, he's a humble person that like takes time to read about things, and like I remember like, learning about how his views on martial arts and all that, and it goes beyond race. He's like, I'll teach anyone. I'm like, this is the kind of person that it's a very good man.
I
And he
agree.
was always like big on like breaking racial boundaries, like get everyone together.
True. Traci.
I would say for me, someone that's really just had a big impact on my life is my older cousin. She's gone through so much, and she's been able to like take social justice and put it into her work, which is kind of what I want to do. And she kind of paved that path for me. She did her undergrad and then she got her master's in public health, and she's going back to school now to be a midwife. And she had recently just worked in a clinic, I think it's up in Lewiston maybe, where they would help a lot of like Somali women who may have like a language barrier and just be there for them and get them the help that they need. So she's just doing a lot of the work, and it makes her, I see how happy it makes her, and I kind of want to do the same thing. So she's had a very like big impact on me, and she's been a big leader in my life.
That's really good. See.
I wouldn't say that I have any person, poet, activist, or leader that I personally look up to. I try mostly to look at their work because people are very finicky, I've come to realize. And so I try not to look up to or idealize any single person because I have this interview that they might do something and I might be crushed, and I don't want to ever look at that person's work again. So I'm really inspired by people's work, and I try to, you can separate someone's art from the person who did it. And so I try to mostly look at people's work and am inspired by that. Sorry, I don't have any particular thing.
That's really good. Fiona.
I would agree with Ting about idealizing people, but I do have some people that I like to read. So like Thomas Sankara, Kwame Ture, Angela Davis. I have a couple of her books, and like when I'm just feeling like really angry, like I'll just open it up and like try and read a couple of passages or like whatever, and usually that makes me feel a little bit better, like someone actually knows how to deal with this stuff and knows what's going on. And also just like I feel like you need like some comedic relief, and like I feel like I definitely look up to Issa Rae. I don't know if you guys have heard her. I love her show Insecure. That like watching that just makes me like feel so good. But yeah, I love her.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think for me, I really love reading Angela Davis. Like that's my go-to when I'm so pissed off, especially during the marching. I was like, I really gotta read that. And Chimamanda as well. And like you said, Fiona with the comics, Issa Rae is my go-to. Ava, and I think those are my favorite right now. But I don't, again, like she said, I don't want to really like call them like people that I look up to, because I'm like, what if I get disappointed? But I love their work and I love their writings. It's really inspiring. The other question that I have is from Rylan. Are there works or activities that you turn to when you need to recharge? How do you take care of yourself as activists?
Okay, I can answer that one. So what I do in my downtime to like just get away from things is like I'm a photographer, so I go out spontaneous road trips, do some photos, and then I just get my mind away from the world for a bit, just to recharge on things.
Mm.
And sometimes I come back with like a different approach to a problem I have in the world. If I want to like speak about something, then I go out, do something that'll get me in the mindset to relax.
That's really good, Traci.
Yeah, so I guess probably working out or running or something of the sort. But I would say over the past 2 years is when I've felt like the most exhausted and burnt out. And like this is the period of my life where I've learned from that. And like I've had to take some breaks and just kind of focus on something else, which can sort of make you feel guilty at times because you're like, um this is a problem, but it's such an ongoing problem that it's like sometimes you really just need to take a break. And I think, like I said before, going into school next year, I'm not going to go in trying to attack a system of academia because it's, like you said, it's even worse. And if I do get like a reaction that I don't want, it's going to be more impactful to me on my future. Instead of just like high school. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely agree with you. See?
What I do is like I like to find monotonous things. Like sometimes I'll mindlessly play video games, mindlessly read a book. I'm an artist, so sometimes I'll just mindlessly doodle to listening to music to recharge myself from being burnt out from doing all kinds of work. One of the things I count for the best for my mental health recently has been I've taken the longest time away from any sort of social media whatsoever, because that's where I got a lot of my news, where I found a lot of activism. I went on such a long spree for the entirety of for the longest time. I can't remember a certain time point. It's been so long, and I just got so drained and burned out, and I got so tired of like fighting people in my mind and with my words. I stopped and just I haven't gone back, and it's been the best for mental health recently.
Really good. Fiona?
I would agree with Siting. Yeah, just finding some mindless stuff to do. Definitely watching Insecure, Issa Rae. Shoot, there was something else I just thought of that I forgot. I think I did this thing where like just like making trips that like won't happen, but like going on Google Earth, finding like a nice hotel on Zillow or like Airbnb. I love doing that. And I honestly think I was not good at this at self-care and taking breaks, and that's why I'm feeling so burnt out now. And now I'm kind of getting in the mode of like taking a break and creating stuff. Like I want to get into screenwriting and film and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, those are really good ways of recharging. I think for me, I do, like I said, like C Tank said, I definitely log off of my social media. I sometimes have to reschedule everything that I had on schedule for like a month or a few weeks so that I can recharge, and getaways are my thing, traveling. So yeah, we all need that. We should really do that. And I have, I think, another question from the audience was, what is something that well-intentioned people might do or say that is actually not helpful? That's a really good question. I really want to hear what you guys have to say. Whoever want to start.
I'll start. I a quick one. So I mean, I got an example. It's a couple of things. I guess coming back to campus last fall with that COVID happening, people asked me, they assumed right away, "Are you doing okay? Are the Asian anti-Asian tax hurting you?" I'm like, relax. Like, why did you jump straight to that question about how I'm feeling based on that thing happening? And then during this semester, I was just talking to my friends about like how I feel overwhelmed with school and like with the Asian hate crime attacks happening and like family stuff happening at home. Like, do you need to talk to an Asian therapist? I'm like, what? Why that? Why is that have to do with anything? This is a weird thing to say, you know. And it's like I need to talk to a therapist, you know, sure, but it's a weird thing to say, you know. But that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah,
Just
and
people who assume things right away and just assume they're doing more help than harm, you know.
and 2020 was full of assumption. That I can tell y'all, like it was too much. Yeah. Anyone who wants to jump in and answer to that question?
Yeah, so I think these are my most like recent things that I can think of. That happened. So there was a coach who was asking me if I could like come and help or just have a conversation with him about how we could help Black athletes in the school. And something that he brought up was like, oh, in high school, my best friend was Black, and that's probably one of the worst things that you can do. And it's like people say, like, it seems like such a cliche thing that people talk about, but then it actually happens, and you're like, and then there was another person that I was going to, it was a doctor, and who happened to be a lesbian, and she was like, so like I understand, like I'm a lesbian, like living in Maine, and the same type of thing is like, yes, we're both like experiencing discrimination, but it's not the same thing, so don't try to make it be. It's just that's not the same. So yeah.
On that, yeah, true. I agree with all of you. See or Fiona.
Just going back to what Phil said, when the Stop Asian Hate was happening, I remember after I think the Atlanta murders, our school sent out emails to all the Asian American kids at our school saying like, hey, if you need to talk, we set up like this Google meeting if you want to go. It's not that I don't appreciate that the school's trying to do something. It's like the bare minimum, but it's like I feels like they're apologizing. Hey, sorry this is happening to you. This is the best we can do for you is a meeting. And my instant thought is, yeah, I'm also upset that Asians are being hate crime, but it doesn't mean that I want to go have a public cry session about what was happening to us at the moment. So that wasn't very helpful, but just the bare minimum.
Mm-hmm. Fiona.
I think like a pretty broad example is just like white savior stuff. People think they're like saving someone, and it's just very demeaning, and definitely people should think before they do that. And I also had like an experience in a school board meeting where we were talking. It was right after Portland had like removed SROs from their schools, and we were having the conversation in South Portland. And so I was defending removal of the SROs, and I had written a statement and basically just like talked about like the perception of like walking into a school building and just seeing like a police officer fully dressed with a gun on his belt after everything that had happened in this past year. And this guy, he wasn't trying to be rude or anything, but he calls me out. I think he interrupted my presentation and was like, why don't you just go up and talk to him? Why don't you, they're a person too. You need to like, and it was just kind of crazy. And he wasn't trying to be rude, but you're calling me out in front of like an online audience, and also just like trying to gaslight what I'm feeling and disregard what generally students have been feeling. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with all of you. And I really think the most thing that is unhelpful that people should really stop doing is asking, oh, do you need any help? If you know that I need help, just come and help me. Don't ask me if I need help, because you see that I'm struggling, and for you to come with your white privilege and ask me or tell me if you need any help, let me know. I don't need to come let you know when I need help, when you see that I need help. And I also think that it's part of education. It's part of people who they know exactly what to do, but they don't just want to do it. They just want to be passive aggressive and gaslighting us and just, throw everything under the rug. And I really agree with you guys. We are like 17 minutes past to the time we had. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask each one of you, what is 1 or 2 sentences you would tell the audience today that they should go with, whether it's an inspiring thought or whether it's an affirmation or if it's a request, just 1 or 2 sentences that you want the audience to take with tonight after the session. Philip, I'll start with you.
Okay, think of something. I guess what they need to know is like, just if you know something, make sure you know it rather than just you think or you assume, because that could lead to a mess if something goes wrong.
That's really good. Traci?
I would say if you're going to do anything, go support the Telling Room, because like you can see here, it's had such a big impact on our lives and my life. Just having a space where it's like not only writing, but you're surrounded by like other people of color and like these amazing leaders that you can look up to and you'll still have connections with today. It's just a very, very supportive place for students of color.
Great. Fiona. Oh, sorry. And then Fiona.
I guess I would say, remember that there are so many other perspectives out there besides your own, so many different arguments. So when you're trying to think of anything or do anything, remember and try and listen to these other perspectives and account them when you're thinking and trying to argue about your own, and take other people's like stories into account.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, going off of what Ting, something I've definitely learned this year is like, you need to question everything. You need to question your thought processes and how they've been influenced by institutions in this country, and how they're harmful to certain groups. Yeah, so just question.
These are great like closing sentences that I've ever heard. I really think that people should understand that today's session is the definition of the wisdom and the hard work that every panelist present here have been taught and trained to do through the Telling Room. And like Traci said, please support the Telling Room, because that's where we were able to start off and express our feelings and our stories to be able to be where we are today. And not only support the telling room, but the students who are part of the telling room. If you see them outside, reach out to them, ask them the good questions. Don't just ask them the simple question. You know the struggles they're facing. You see that in the news. You see that every day at work, at school, in our society. And I really think that it's time for people to act more than just talking from where you are sitting on behind your, keyboards or phones, and open up the doors and the floor to these young leaders and writers, because that's all you have to build up the future. The present that we have today is all up to what the young leaders and writers and youth have to offer. And with that being said, I really thank everyone, every person who was present today, who listened to us for a whole hour and 20 minutes. I thank the telling room teachers who are here, leaders. Y'all are amazing. And I really wish you all the best. Philip, Traci, C, and Fiona, just keep pushing, keep going. It's gonna be hard the more you dig deeper, but don't stop. Don't stop, because we really need you. We need your voices. We need your wisdom and your anger, because your anger can turn things to good, the bad things to good. I would leave the floor to Tori, and I hope everyone is enjoying this weather. I hope you have a good summer and a good time wherever you are. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.